Hello and welcome. We're coming to you live at our special time from the Republican National Convention in St. Paul, Minnesota. Now, he doesn't have a chance at winning the White House, according to the pundits and pollsters, but former Republican Congressman Bob Barr, now the Libertarian candidate for president, is taking his campaign all the way till Election Day. So what's motivating him to continue? On today's show, we asked the maverick politician whether or not his effort can finally establish a real third party in America's two-party system, or is he just a spoiler for John McCain? Congressman Bob Barr joins us from the Republican National Convention in St. Paul to answer that and more. Congressman, good to have you with us, sir.
Great to be with you.
I've got to ask you, a lot of people are saying you're going to be taking votes away from John McCain and effectively playing into the hands of the Democrats. How do you answer those critics?
They're simply not true. First of all, the Republican Party needs to present an image, a vision, some leadership to the American people, some excitement if they hope to win the election. If they don't do that, and they haven't done it so far, then they're not going to win. It has nothing to do whether I'm running or anybody else is running. As a practical matter, though, more importantly, to address that issue, the fact is, the votes that I will be taking from the Republican side of the equation, so to speak, are voters who would not vote for McCain anyway because he and I are so different. He's a big government Republican. I'm a small government Libertarian. There's no overlap.
I was wondering how those divisions in the Republican Party are helping build your voter base. What sort of feedback are you getting?
A tremendous feedback. For example, just a short distance from here yesterday, Ron Paul, the congressman from Texas, had a very large rally. I spent a couple of hours over there meeting with people, including many people from here who had gone over to Ron Paul's event. And they were very, very supportive of my candidacy. And that's what we're witnessing on a much broader scale across the country. Particularly young people are coming over to the Libertarian agenda as a new voice, a new option to really do something different.
And to what extent does that include the supporters of Hillary Clinton who aren't ready to vote for Barack Obama and also aren't ready to vote Republican yet?
Well, we have a plan for them too. The so-called Reagan Democrats, the blue-collar Democrats who support, for example, the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms. They know that I'm a very strong supporter of the Second Amendment, being on the National Rifle Association board. They know that Senator Obama is not. They're not going to vote for him. They will vote for me, we anticipate, in fairly large numbers.
Well, sir, we had an email that came in from California, if I could put this to you, from David, who wrote in by email saying, why do you oppose the NSA's domestic spying program, the multitude of executive orders, not to mention the PATRIOT Act? Aren't these measures meant to keep Americans safe?
It really is not so much that they're meant to keep Americans safe. They are excessive. They go far beyond what is necessary and proper within the Constitution to keep America safe. It's not a question of the government not being able to surveil properly those who would do us harm. Terrorists, for example, the government has always had the power to do that. The new law that was signed and supported by both Senator McCain and Senator Obama recently allows the government, authorizes the government to surveil anybody in this country without any showing that they've done anything wrong, simply because they are calling somebody or receiving a call from overseas.
Well, let's get a call in from Nigeria and see if we can compete with the noise here at the convention. SALIHU, what's your question, please? Ask your question to us.
Yeah, Riz Khan, hi. My question is that the Republicans are trying to say that Sarah Palin, the vice presidential nominee, has more experience than Obama and Biden combined in terms of the executive experience. What I want to know is, does McCain have any executive experience?
Okay, our caller is saying that there's been a big competition between the Democrats and Republicans on executive experience, and they say that Barack Obama and Joe Biden have far more executive experience. How do you judge John McCain's executive experience level?
Well, he's certainly familiar with Washington. He's been in Washington for decades, so he certainly knows Washington, and certainly he does have some experience in terms of international affairs from his position as a United States Senator. Senator Obama has virtually no experience on the international stage and barely any on the national stage. My experience, I have 2 degrees in international relations. I've lived and worked in different parts of the world, including the Middle East. I served 8 years with the Central Intelligence Agency, served as a United States Attorney, and served 8 years in the United States Congress. I clearly have, I believe, very strong background, particularly in the international arena. Senator Obama does not. John McCain's is very limited simply to being in Washington for a long time.
Well, so we had another email here. It's from Australia, if I could put this to you, from S. Anoma in Sydney, a regular viewer, who writes in saying, the two-party system is being broken by smaller political parties in other countries. Why not in the US, where they believe in providing several choices for the consumer? And it's true, America, a country famous for choice, seems to have the most limited choice when it comes to politics.
A very, very perceptive email. It's basically because there's a great comfort level in the status quo in America. We have had basically a two-party system at the national level for well over a century and a half. And people have grown up with that. Their parents say, and their grandparents, well, you have to vote Republican because we voted Republican, or you have to vote Democrat because we voted Democrat. If you vote for a third party, you're throwing your vote away. The fact of the matter is that the two-party system, and young people in America are realizing this in very significant numbers, that the two-party system is not serving America well. It has simply become a situation where you have basically two sides of the same coin, and there's very little difference in terms of real substance between the Republicans and Democrats.
We have another call from Nigeria. We seem to have a lot of people following the election closely there, and Mohammed has a question. Mohammed, what would you like to ask?
My question. Hello.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, please.
I want to ask Riz Khan about the issue of election in America. Did the people in America realize the damage that the Republicans have been done to American system of government because of the present situation in Iraq?
Okay. That's a question, Congressman, but basically what Mohammed is asking is, do Americans realize the damage that the Republican policy in Iraq has done to the image of America overseas?
I don't think actually that most Americans realize that. There is a very low level of understanding on the part of the vast majority of Americans with regard to foreign affairs generally, much less in a part of the world that is geographically very far away. Americans don't realize the great damage that has been done to our prestige and our ability to work with other nations constructively by these sort of very proactive, interventionist, very arrogant in many respects foreign policy perpetrated by this administration, especially in the Middle East. And now we're seeing those same sort of problems by virtue of the arrogance of our policies with regard to Russia.
Now, of course, you have a strong following. You're a very respected politician with a lot of experience, and you had a strong Republican platform for so many years. Now, of course, you're with the Libertarian Party. Are you comfortable with the party's position on most issues, especially as actually you were at odds with them as a Republican way back, and they were pretty much responsible for you having lost your position at one time?
I'm very comfortable with the Libertarian Party because at its core, the Libertarian Party stands for all of those things that the Republican Party used to stand for but no longer does. Smaller government, less government spending, a true emphasis on individual liberty and privacy, and a government that is accountable to the people, and a non-interventionist foreign policy. Those are the platform planks in the Libertarian Party. They are not part of the Republican platform any longer.
Now, how hard is it for a politician like yourself, who's outspoken and very direct in what you say, to change position on certain platforms? I mean, you changed your mind on the medical marijuana issue, on the troops in Iraq, on various issues like this. Is there any danger you could be accused of flip-flopping?
Well, of course, that's always a danger in modern politics, regardless of whether a person changes their position for very legitimate reasons, because of changed circumstances, for example, or in the case of the USA Patriot Act, because we see that it has been abused by the way it's implemented. There's always that danger. But the fact of the matter is that more and more, I think, Americans, and particularly here young people again, are very willing to recognize that it's important for our leaders to change their position if it's truly necessary, and there's a good reason for it, based on their reevaluation of changed circumstances, and to make sure that the power that we give the government is not being abused. And if it is, then not to be afraid to go back and take that power back.
Let's squeeze in a call from Ghana. Abdul's on the line. Abdul, what would you like to ask?
Hello.
Hi, go ahead, please.
Hello.
Go ahead, Abdul. Yeah, go on, please.
Yeah, I've just seen that you are making a discussion as to the two-party democracy in America, which I would say is so prudent to follow. We in Africa, we have realized that the multi-choice democracy in Africa
is actually a problem and not a panacea to any problem. So I am therefore advising that it is prudent for Americans to stick to their two-party system democracy. Thank you.
Okay, because we don't have much time, Abdul, thank you for that. A quick thought here, Congressman, because we don't have much time. Abdul saying a multi-party system can actually cause problems. He's seen it in Africa. How can you advocate for a third party successfully in America?
Because the two-party system is not doing a good job. It is not really addressing the needs of the American people, either at home or abroad, and having a very broad-based party like the Libertarian Party to move us back to our roots and improve our prestige abroad benefits all Americans and our allies and friends around the world.
Congressman Bob Barr, thank you very much for joining us, sir. Thank you.
It's an honor to be with you. Thank
Pleasure,
you.
sir. Thanks. And after the break, I'll be joined by controversial Republican Congressman and former presidential candidate Ron Paul. First, let's hear more from our viewers on what they'd like to see from the next U.S. president.
So I don't think they're very careful about what they're doing in foreign policy. The idea is that the U.S. never loses by changing sides and changing positions, and this is not true anymore. It's like crying wolf. So the foreign policy has been a complete failure in Iraq and in other places in the world.
What I would like to see the next U.S. president do is, among other things, bring a true and lasting peace in the Middle East. That means the recognition of the territorial sovereignty of all of the existing countries in the area. I would hope that the American president could influence all of the existing countries in the region to respect each other's territorial sovereignty.